4. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Hearing none, liaison comments, and I don't believe we have any liaisons with us.
Do you want to do roll call? No?
Okay, sure. Karen?
No,
No, no, no?
we don't
Okay.
have to do anything for this.
Okay.
Okay. Chairman's report. There are 2 items of the chairman's report. One is an ongoing discussion regarding the volunteer recruitment and retention efforts. I don't know if we have anything new to report.
I haven't had a chance to work on it. I've been busy with some other things that I'm going to talk about in my report.
Mhm.
So if we can push that off 1 more month, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I maybe we can figure out, maybe is it worthwhile just figuring out something how to go forward, to think about how moving it, to have it, what we want, how we want to approach it.
Sure.
And maybe it's just worth a couple of seconds just to,
Well, I think we talked about it, I want to say at the December meeting.
yeah.
And we talked about some of our ideas, and then we took it to the chief to say, let us hear from the department, the association, what kinds of things would incentivize them. So I think that's the next step, is hearing from them about what would incentivize them.
I just haven't had a chance to, between the budget and some of the other stuff going on right now, which I'm going to get into, and you'll see why. It's just, it never made
Yeah.
the top of my list.
Yeah, and
Well,
I
sure,
think
probably
with
sure.
budget going on and stuff.
Next time,
yeah,
next meeting,
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we
could
could
definitely bring it up.
We can
Sure.
aim for it next meeting. And the goal is just to hear from the association about what additional things they think would incentivize recruitment and retention from their perspective. Okay? And if you think it would be helpful at some point to have a meeting, a joint meeting, where we all have a conversation about that, we can do that as well.
Yeah, maybe that might be,
I mean, we could do a meeting separate here if you want to do another meeting in a couple weeks and just talk about it.
Yeah,
I mean, we could talk about it tonight. I have nothing really to add
Right,
unless you
right.
guys have stuff to add. I'd be more than happy to listen to it.
No, I think what would be helpful.
no, and Nate would be good to be here too, right?
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah, so we can talk about it more, but either to have the liaison prepared to report the thoughts of the association, or a joint meeting, whatever
Okay.
you think is better. Okay, the next item on the agenda is ongoing discussion regarding capital and operating budgets.
All right, so capital, so we talked about the aerial truck. We brought it up when we did the capital budget, talking about the aerial. So what we did a few years ago, and I think what we need to do is moving forward, we need to show the need to the town, why we need an aerial, the cost of what an aerial is, because we're definitely breaking the $1 million number here for a truck. We're probably closer to the $2 million number. So I think this requires a little bit more, not discussion, but more information on why we need it and what it would be used for. So, and I think it's a conversation we should start here. And then once we'll create a presentation, and then once we have that and we all feel comfortable with it, I think our next step would be is to go and present it to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, so we can move forward on it. So I'm gonna just run through this pretty quick. If you guys have more questions, I'm gonna run through this, probably take me 10 minutes. This is a presentation we did back in 2016. There was a truck that was available, and the Board of Selectmen was in favor of it. Board of Finance was not in favor of it. It was called a T-Rex. Rosenbauer made it. It's an aerial truck, tower truck, shorter than the one we currently have. The truck at the time was roughly 1.5 million. We negotiated with a place down in Maryland for 910,000 with the equipment on it. It was a really good deal at the time. Board of Selectmen was for it, Board of Finance wasn't, and it died. So, and it was a used truck, but the truck was a 2013. So it was 3 years old, but it was a really good deal to pass up, but here we are today, and we need to move forward. So this is just the presentation we did a couple years ago, where this was our current truck back then. It was a 1976 American LaFrance. Right now we have a 1992 LTI Tower, which we can see out back, which is 100 feet. At that time, this truck was a 50-foot aerial, held a 1,000 gallon per minute pump, 500 water tank. Right now, the current one's a 250 gallon water tank, which we don't get really hung up on water tanks that big on aerial trucks, because we don't really need a lot of water. Usually you have an engine supplying it, so you don't need the water like you do on some of the other engines or the tankers that we have. NFPA 1911 states apparatus over 25 years should be replaced or removed from service. So currently our truck is a 1982, so we are 32 years old right now. So and the current truck we currently have was bought by the association as a Band-Aid to get us through the next couple of years. It was supposed to be a 2 to 3 year truck, and here we are. It was purchased back in 2018. Here we are 6 years into that, and the truck needs to be replaced. I went too fast. Adopted Engine 6, once again, this was a presentation, doesn't meet NFPA 1901 for rollover protection. The new truck does meet NFPA 1901, but it's older technology and we're well beyond its useful life. This was the truck we were looking at. It was a 2013 aerial, 500 horsepower motor, 2,000 GPM pump, 300 gallon water tank, excellent working condition, 4,900 miles, 300 hours. It was worth 1.5 million at purchase today. That was back in 2016. Today that truck is worth over 2.5 million. So it just shows you how much it went up. We negotiated a price of $910,000, includes a great deal of tools and equipment. Would have saved the town at least $500,000 at the time. It's extremely rare to find a truck like this in excellent condition. But when we find a truck like this, it's really hard to buy something out of the town like this, because there's so many approval processes that it has to go through, and by the time you do that, usually the truck is already sold and gone somewhere else. So even though a used truck may be good, usually, or a demo truck, usually it doesn't last around for a long time, and the way we're set up is it's really hard for us to even purchase something like that. New aerial was easier to drive, more useful, types of incidents. It's an all hazards truck, structure fires, fire alarms. It could respond to MVAs, water rescues, mass evacuations, hazmat incidents, search and rescue. So at the time we looked at it like Yamhill High School, if we had to evacuate a lot of kids from the second floor window, if we looked at the nursing homes that we currently have, which nursing homes, a lot of them, especially the one at 21 Bradley Road, there's a lot of wood in that building, so for us to actually physically get people out of the second floor, even non-ambulatory people, it'd be extremely hard. This would make it a lot easier. We'd be able to go right up, load them up, bring them right down, and the truck, maneuverability-wise and function-wise, it moves a lot faster than what we currently have even today. So it was a big need. The other big thing about why we need a tower is more and more people are putting solar panels on their houses, on commercial buildings. Beach Road School has them. GCC has some solar panels. High school, multiple homes.
Synagogue has.
Synagogue has them. So what's bad about solar panels are great, right? They provide electricity. If the power goes out or we have a fire at it, what happens is the solar panel's still energized. So meaning you have to go up there, even if we pulled the switch on the solar disconnect, the actual panel itself is still live. So if we put an axe through it, somebody falls on it, we do something with it, somebody's gonna get electrocuted. So it was a whole big thing about, instead of putting ground ladders up and trying to go around it, you would have more maneuverability with a tower truck to get up there and have a more safer working environment. So you can see different things, how this was the T-Rex It had that extra jib that came down, which if we had a parapet wall, the ladder could go up over it and then actually drop over the parapet wall and go right down to the ground. So this was an added feature. Once again, this presentation was more based on this truck, on why we're looking to get this truck, the advantages of it. You can see how we have a big gate here. This area here is to put a Stokes basket in, so if we had to rescue somebody from a roof, which we had to do that a couple times for construction accidents, somebody puts a nail through their knee or whatever, we have to get them off. This is an easy way for us to go up, put a Stokes basket on and lower them to the ground to get medical aid. Just another couple of pictures here. You can see this is a different type of truck. This is an Ascendant. This is a Pierce. But you can see why you need to reach from the road over the grass to get to a house. And as the presentation goes, you're going to see more. This gives us more of who we were, who we are, volunteer firefighters. So the way the town was back in the 1970s when the truck was first bought back in '76 is a lot different than where we are today with construction methods, solar panel installations, which we talked about, but even construction methods where you have pre-engineered lumber now, you have microlams, you have particle board for plywood. So there's a lot of different things that burn, and it burns a lot faster than it did with conventional framing. So this is what we do, fire rescue and other. As you can see, we'll redo some of these slides, but this is what we did a few years ago. Types of calls: structural, private dwelling, structural, commercial, high occupancy, meaning, private dwelling is your home. Commercial high occupancy could be the high school, could be the nursing homes, assisted living facilities. You can use it for rescue, hazmat situations. Well, how is that good for hazmat? Well, if we had, and we went through COVID, so what we had to do is we had to wash everybody off when they came out. So basically the ladder would stick out. It has a shower feature on it where a shower curtain, and basically you walk underneath it, it rinses you off, and then you come out of that. So you're not putting people that are not in harm's way that are trying to help. You're giving them a 100-foot buffer for them to wash off to get to you rather than washing off right at the truck like we did. Motor vehicle accidents, if we have a vehicle down in the embankment or whatever, this truck would actually help out with that, along with being able to tie off and stabilize the vehicle if you're down in the embankment. Mutual aid, medical assists, like we just talked about, and search, we go up in the bucket, and at the time, the thermal imaging camera, we would be up high enough where we would be able to see what we can do to help out there. This gives us more of an understanding of what the trucks do. So at a regular, if this was a house fire, basically we would have engine 2 come up or engine 3 come up. The driveway right now to the house, we'd lay in. You'd have the tower up there also with the stick coming out. So if we have to cut a hole in the roof, we would be able to, if we can get the truck close enough, we'd be able to extend, cut a hole in the roof, so we're not putting anybody on the actual roof. We'd have them in the bucket of the tower making the cuts, and as we go through the presentation, you'll see why. But this basically gives you reason for it. So engine 2 is supplying water up at the fire for the hose lines, the hand lines. It also provides water to the tower. So if we needed to use the gun at the end of the tower, we would be able to. Engine 7, which is in the bay, feeds all this equipment up here. And then you can see the tankers here with the ponds in the street. And 7 basically drafts out of the ponds as the tankers fill them, and it feeds the water. So it looks like a lot of water, but each pond holds 3,000 gallons of water, and the pump on engine 7 pumps 2,250 gallons a minute. So it looks like a lot of water, but we go through it quite often, so it's not unheard of to go run through 50, 60, 100,000 gallons of water pretty quick. And then we would put engine 3 or engine 9 at the closest hydrant, so when the tankers came around, we actually hook up one of the engines to the hydrant and we force water into the tankers to fill them quicker. So residential fire doubles in intensity every 10 to 30 seconds to reach temperatures in excess of 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. So firefighters create ventilation paths by cutting holes in the roof before entering a burning building. So what we want to do is, at a fire, as we're attacking the fire, the goal is to actually cut a vent hole directly over the fire, and that could be a window going out, depending on where the fire is. Most likely it's vertical ventilation, so we're cutting a hole in the roof. If we had a fire in this room, I don't want to cut a hole on the other side, because all it's going to do is fire is going to travel, wants oxygen. So it needs three major things. Oxygen's one of them. It's going to chase, and it's going to want to push the fire and drag the fire across the building to the vent hole. So we want to be pretty much directly over the fire when we cut a hole in the roof. As we cut in the hole, we're actually attacking the fire. We're releasing all the heat, all the gases. That's how we put the fire out. This is a conventional roof ladder. We carry these ladders. Basically, it hangs over the bridge beam. So on a house, you have a piece of wood that goes down the middle where your wood goes in. It's called a ridge beam. This hooks it so the ladder doesn't slide. The guys go up on this ladder and they start cutting a hole. On truss construction, you can see in this picture, we don't even have a ridge beam anymore. Okay, so a lot of houses that are going up are truss construction, so they don't have this ridge beam. So we're relying on that 1/2-inch piece of plywood or 5/8 piece of plywood. Once that burns, basically this ladder falls into the fire, and with the firefighter on it. This is more of a conventional thing, which homes back in the 50s and 60s and 70s were built, where you had your roof rafters, you had a ridge beam, you had collar ties. So this construction is a lot different than where we are, what we're building today, and it more has to do with cost. So it's much cheaper to have truss construction rather than doing conventional framing. So when we take buildings like this, is the tennis center. These are big buildings. We can't go up on these roofs. They're not really safe. This is bowstring construction. So something like this, we would want a tower to go up and shoot water down. We're not gonna risk life. We're not gonna risk a firefighter's life to go on something like this, because the failure rate at this is gonna be a lot quicker. So this, let's see if we can play.
One firefighter and an image seen by so many across this country tonight. He was surrounded by smoke in Fresno, California this weekend, breaking through the roof. Moments later, you can see as a witness records the scene, he falls through the roof of that burning home, flames then shooting into the air a split second later. Well, tonight here, the frantic rescue effort that followed and now his condition. ABC's Aditi Roy is in Fresno.
A terrifying accident while fighting a fire in Fresno. That's Fire Captain Pete Dern on the roof of this garage, sent up to make ventilation holes. When just 23 seconds later, the roof collapses and flames explode out.
I saw a couple firefighters on top of the roof as one fell right in. Immediately put in the park. My daughter was screaming.
Local resident Joe Reyes, a former Marine, helping run the hose to firefighters as they frantically try to save their comrades.
Once they extracted the firefighter out of the garage to remove his clothes, doused him with water, and as they took his uniform off, he was burned from head to toe.
Fellow firefighters overcome with emotion. Captain Dern is a 25-year veteran of the department. Tonight, he's in critical condition.
He has probably trained every one of us at some point in his career.
The fire chief tells us Captain Dern even trained her when she was just a rookie, that he's been a hero and brother to so many.
So as you can see, the need for the tower truck to be able to go up there and work off of a platform rather than the less time you have to be on the roof, the safer it obviously is. And off of a ladder truck, off of a tower, meaning the bucket on the front is a tower truck, you can actually cut those holes and do it a lot safer and be on something stable rather than walking around on a roof like normally what we do now. So you can see it, we use it for chimney fire. This is how we would fight a conventional chimney fire now, where we have this, or if we can get our truck close enough Your truck is really big right now, I think it's 48 feet. We would get up here with the tower, we'd stick a chain, we have a chain kit that goes down and knocks the fire down, we have put a bucket in the chimney, remove the fire, bring it outside, put it out, end up cleaning the chimney as we're doing that. But this is something we go to quite often, chimney fires, and I think on the assistant chief's report tonight, I think we had 2 chimney fires last month, so
It's a season.
it is, so, but this is a common thing, so it's not an uncommon thing that we go to. So Woodbridge has grown significantly since 1975, where we had the first aerial, so built in 1960, built in 69, was just about a 2,000 square foot home, where back in 2007, we're building over 6,000 square foot homes. So the fire need and everything else is there. Why you need a bigger truck than a 50 footer back in 1976, and the type of construction is why you need a tower and why you need a longer truck to get into this. More than 14%, 442 homes in our town are greater than 4,000 square feet. So it's there. This is another house built in 1993. It's 5,300 square feet. There's another one, 4,416 square feet. And you can see the roof, how steep the roofs are here. So it's not like a regular gradual roof like we saw back over here, where we can walk it pretty easily and it's pretty safe. Once you start getting to these roofs, they're a lot steeper, and so the risk is a lot greater, especially in the wintertime with ice and snow on the roof. This house was built in 1989, over 4,000, over 5,000. This house was built in 2003 at 9,900 square feet. Here's another picture. This is the front side of the house, the back side of the house. Call volume has grown. We're doing 100 calls a year. Back in 1970, we're doing some years we do over 500 calls a year. Houses, our number of streets, we're at 208 today. In back in 2016, we're at 230, which we're actually higher than that now. Houses, we're at 2,200. Today, we're at over 3,100. Commercial buildings have increased. Elderly housing, over 400 occupants. Remember, these are 2016 numbers, so these numbers have changed. Amity High School was at 150,000 square feet back in the 70s. Today, we're about 280,000 square feet. And Beecher Road School, 3 additions since 1970, a total of 161,000 square feet. And new risks are solar powers. Solar panels and generators are big also. So even though we're killing the power to our house, a lot of people in town have generators. So we're actually re-energizing some of the lines possibly if they didn't pull permits or wasn't wired the correct way. But it's another thing to do. The assessed value back in 1975 was 72 million. Today it's over $1 billion. But these are 2016 numbers. Number of students at Beecher at the time was 900. These are the solar panels. These are located on the pool section of the building. As you can see, they're spread out, but there's other solar panels throughout the rest of the building. Once again, solar is really great, but if we had to get up there and cut a hole in this roof, it presents another danger for us. So the safer we could do it, the better we are. These are Benai Jacob panels. The panels at Benai Jacob, you can see they're almost everywhere. So it's really hard to ventilate something like that and be safe about it. It's not like we can take a pike pole or an axe and rip a solar panel off, cut a hole. They're energized. It's like sticking your finger in an electrical socket. Just it's a lot worse. Amity High School's got some solar on it. Once again, it's over 1,600 students and staff in the building. So this is an interesting thing. So the reason why is, why do you need a 100-foot ladder? Well, we need a 100-foot ladder because the building here is 45 feet tall, and our collapse area is we want to try to keep the truck away 1.5 times the height of the structure. So if we do have a collapse, we're not going to take out the apparatus and the individuals around it. So that's why we want to be 1.5 times away. It's an NFPA deal. So if we were 1.5 times away at a 45-foot structure, we're 67.5 feet away. We need 81 feet just to reach the corner of the roof. At that. Now that doesn't take into the fact of any things in the way. Sidewalks, trees, cars, if there's cars parked. So as we go through, you can see some of these other things. So you can see the cars in front here. So we have to literally be up and over all that. This shows a house, 35-foot height in town. That's our working height. We have to be 52.5 feet away, and the reach would have to be at least 63 feet. That's if we were right at 52.5 feet.
And
So,
that's the corner of the roof, that's not the pitch.
correct. So it just gives you, and that's the building ordinance for residential is 35 feet in town. So that just gives you a reason why we need a bigger truck than a 50-foot truck. And that's why a 100-foot truck would do us more. This is when the firehouse burned. You could see this is the old telesquirt. The truck barely reached the corner of the building. That was fully extended. So we ended up using even ground ladders to get up there to cut the hole in the roof at the old firehouse. This is Center School with the Center Gymnasium where we did a rescue up here, a drill. And you can see we need to set up two 35-foot ground ladders and all this thing to make a rescue where if we had the aerial, we would be able to reach up, put the Stokes basket on, bring the patient right down. We wouldn't need to set up all the rope gear, the tripod up top, the ladders and everything else. This was a fire where they had a big fire. They were going to cut a hole in here, and I think we have a video of this. I'll just show it, see it. So watch these guys up here. So they're cutting a hole right now up on the roof, and it's common to have two guys up. So you can see what happens. The ladder gave way. Somebody should have been footing the ladder, don't get me wrong, but it's icy, it's slippery, and that's what can happen, especially during the day when we're have limited manpower, where if we worked off of a bucket, it would be a safer environment. This is another truck. Once again, we talked about a T-Rex. This was just another department that had it. But non-ambulatory people need to be evacuated. That's senior housing on Lucy Street, 21 Bradley Road, 225 Amity Road. This is basically all wood. This has got some steel in it and wood. 330 Amity Road. This is 3 floors, 87,000 square feet. Once again, you can see the cars. You can see all this obstruction in the way and the cars. So a 100-foot ladder would barely make it right to the roof.
None of those buildings are sprinkled because of their height.
No, they are.
Those are sprinkled.
All the convalescent homes are
Convalescents are sprinkled because
Yeah.
of their convalescent homes, not
because of their occupancy.
Because of their occupancy. Okay. But also sprinklering is also a height thing too.
That came in after the Rhode Island nightclub fire.
Okay.
Sprinkler systems.
No.
There you go. 90% of the commercial buildings in town do not have one. Sprinkler systems are meant to contain fire spread, not extinguish the fire. So we're trying to, if we have a fire in this room, the sprinkler heads are going to go off. We're trying to contain the fire into this room rather than having it spread. Sprinkler systems are not designed to actually extinguish a fire. They're just meant to try to hold it in place until the fire department gets there and put it out. It gives more time to escape. The system can be overwhelmed. Fire department ties in and supplies water. So a good fire to talk about this about was, and this connection is an FDC connection. Basically, we pull up with an engine, we're gonna put a hose to it, and we're gonna pump water into the sprinkler system, because the main coming in probably isn't gonna be big enough, depending on how big the fire is, to supply it. So we supply the water to the fire. big thing happened at the GCC was, what we learned is, since the GCC is up on a hill, we fought that fire and we lost pressure. So as the sprinkler system called for more, how many heads did we pop? 20? Right around 20 heads we popped in the building to try to contain the fire. The fire we didn't have enough water, the system didn't have enough water to supply it, so what we did is we tapped in up top to try to help it, but learned that we didn't have enough water in the system coming up the hill because of the grade change. We weren't getting water at the top and we weren't getting water into the building with the firefighters inside. So what we had to do is we had to hit the hydrant across on Amity Road, bring water across, bring it up the hill. We fed the sprinkler system and we fed the engine up on top the building. Since then, we corrected the problem by putting a standpipe basically at the bottom. So if we do have another fire there or at 330 Amity Road, one of the the assisted living facilities, we basically hit the hydrant off on Amity Road. We come in, we take an engine, and we're basically going to supply the complex. We still have to go and tie into the FDC connection with another engine and feed the building with the sprinkler system, but we're not going to take away from the guys inside trying to put the fire out, along compromising the sprinkler system. So as you can see, these are other buildings in town. Here's the GCC here at 145,000 feet. And we actually had this fire after we did this presentation. But you can see all the other buildings that are around that we do. This goes into more of ISO. ISO is our insurance rating, so your home insurance is based on our ISO rating. So we have to carry so much equipment, we have to carry water, we have to carry different equipment, different valves and stuff like that, and ladders. And the better you get your ISO rating, the lower your home insurance is. These are other towns that have aerial devices in the area.
Could we get a number for if you had the 100-foot aerial, how much that would drop the ISO rating? And dollar value?
ISO rate, it goes by, it's one factor, but it's not gonna drop it. It's all this other stuff that combines into it. So I want to say our ISO rating is a 4. So we can't really get much more, like we'll never get it because we don't have hydrants everywhere. There's certain things we don't have a paid fire department. So our ISO rating is actually pretty good. I'm gonna say it's not. I don't think if we put an aerial in, 100-foot aerial in, it's gonna drop it where it's gonna be, I don't know, like a $50 or $100 savings, but we could definitely look at that.
I think it would just be interesting to look at household savings based
Sure.
on that. I mean, even if it's like $25 per household times the number of households, it's significant.
Okay.
They ask a lot of questions about that when you're doing your insurance, when you're
Yeah.
getting your insurance,
Yep.
they ask questions.
So we get a lot
How close
of
are you?
insurance
Yeah,
companies.
that
How
was probably me.
are you 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant?
Right, oh yeah,
So if
yes.
you're over
They ask
1,000
different
feet,
things.
you're paying premium.
I bet you I get 3 or 4 of those phone calls a week rather, from people asking, because all of a sudden the rates are going up.
Yeah.
Right.
And is there a hydrant within 1,000 feet? No, you're about a mile away from it.
So this is another important fact, mutual aid. So why can't we call mutual aid for other things? So mutual aid is more designed to help and assist you, not be your frontline defense onto something. That's how mutual aid is really designed. So when we have a big fire and we need to truck water in, we have 2 tankers and we're calling Bethany for their tankers, we're calling Prospect, we're calling Seymour, we'll call whoever we need to get as many tankers as we need, but they're there to assist us. They're not the frontline defense to be right off the hop. They're coming here.
But they're volunteers too, so
They
they
are
have to get from their
volunteers.
house
Right.
to the fire department. then
Right,
to
so we're
our
looking,
town.
even on a good day with no traffic, even lights and siren, we're probably talking at least 20 minutes for a ladder truck, either from Orange, New Haven to arrive if called.
And is there no one else abutting us that has ladder
So
truck?
Bethany does not have an aerial truck. Hamden does, but once again, by the time they get here, you gotta remember, we're not gonna shut down operations and say, okay, well, the aerial is here, let's shut down the hose, move the hose, let's get the aerial where we need it, and then let's set up and then let's reconnect everything, because that doesn't make much sense. We need the aerial right off the hop for these areas. If not, realistically, to get an aerial device in 20 minutes after the fire's been going and we've been there
Yeah.
is almost impossible, because we're dropping basically water mains on top of the road or in parking lots to feed the engines to fight the fire. So we're not gonna shut that all down to be able to get it in. So mutual aid is more to supplement, and it's more to assist you, not to be your first line of defense. So, do you need an aerial in town? We believe you do, the fire department believes you do, because you have enough high-volume structures where it is warranted. And that's it. That was the presentation from, I don't know, 8 years ago. So, I think we could go off of this. Obviously, we have to change slides and come up with and research the new numbers. But I think it's a good way of why we need it. We can look into a couple different things, but if you guys have ideas, we can research them and start putting them together.
So are you speccing it from that truck that you were
No,
looking
so
to get?
remember, technology's changed in 8 years, so we're definitely looking at least a 100-foot aerial truck. So we're gonna go a tower, we're not gonna do a ladder, because I believe a tower is more safer for the guys to work off of.
Can
It's
you
got
just
more-
explain the difference?
Yeah, what-
Sure. So a tower truck is, let's go back to this slide. So this is a ladder truck. This is a conventional ladder. And Orange is getting a tower truck. They have one on order. They're gonna have a ladder and a tower. So they're gonna have two. But this is a ladder truck where it's just a ladder on it. We
Could I just
climb
interrupt
up.
you real quick?
Yep.
Sorry, they're gonna keep them on the post, both, or are they gonna
Yes.
have one in the center and one on the post?
I believe they were gonna be both.
On the post road?
Post road, because that's the only way they're gonna fit.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
So here's a tower truck. This is a bucket on the back. This is a bucket. This is a rear mount truck right here, and you can see it. Here's the bucket that you work off of, and you could put two or three people in here. Where up here you're only going to have one person at the top. It's harder. You can make a rescue. So there's a couple different things. In this truck, some people say this truck has more functionality. This truck's more safer. They both have functionality. They both have their pros and cons to them. But what we're looking for is something like this. Not as long. We're trying to keep the truck short because the roads are kind of narrow in town. The outriggers on our truck now, we have to extend all the way out. On the new trucks, there's called short jacking, where if we're working off the left side of the truck, we have to extend that. On the other side, we don't have to extend all the way out, so we're not taking up an entire road at 16 feet to block off the entire road.
We're looking for 100 feet?
We're looking for 100 feet, yes. Yep.
And you now have what, 50-foot ladder?
Right now, we have a 100-foot tower.
Right.
We have a truck like this right now, 1992.
Okay,
We used to have a 50-foot telesquirt, it was called.
got it, okay.
So if we go back, let's just. Right here. That was what we had. If we went back to, sorry. So here's our old truck in use. That was a 50-foot telesquirt.
You mind if I spitball?
Sure.
So, I'm assuming that a good piece of equipment and apparatus like this needs a particular amount of specialized training to be able to use it correctly, either to operate it or to know how to extract somebody from using it. At least there's got to be some level of of additional training to use
So we
it.
have, so in my report,
Yeah.
even with the new truck we have coming in, there's training on all new apparatus, because the pumps.
Yeah.
Same deal with
So
the
here's my
pumps.
spit,
Yep.
here's my spitball on cost sharing, and I understand mutual aid may not be, mutual aid to fight a fire. But this is spitballing, and I may be naive, but I want to throw it against the wall and see if it's stuck a little bit. Is it possible to deal with cost sharing in a situation where you have a unit that's a specialized unit that knows how to operate an area? I remember, God rest his soul, Johnny Seal that cut down my trees in my yard, right? But when I had to stump it for my tennis court, right, he called in this T-Rex thing that came in with this operator that knew exactly what he was doing, and the T-Rex guy came and stumped out about 100 in about 5 minutes. This was a monster machine, and it got it done. Johnny Ciola was a great tree guy. My point here is on fire, spitballing. Is it possible to think of cost sharing is to have a team that knows how to operate this T-Rex that serves Bethany, Orange, Woodbridge, and that team doesn't have a delay factor. It's the T-Rex
You're always
team.
gonna have it,
Just
you're always
spitballing.
gonna have a
But they're all
factor because
volunteers,
they're all
so that's
volunteers,
our
so you're all
problem.
coming from
Well, I'm
wherever.
not suggesting that. I'm going outside the box a little bit. For an aerial, you're talking about a $2.5 million machine.
No,
And
well, I'm not looking at a T-Rex right now.
Well, I'm
looking
just saying,
at-
but you're.
We're still.
But what I'm
we're
saying
really
is you're
focused
looking at a
right
very
now.
expensive machine
We are.
with, you have to think about when you buy an expensive machine, it's like when you build a very expensive building, you have to maintain it. We see that here with the firehouse. So you're gonna have to build that into the acquisition thoughts, like, you're buying a very big piece of equipment, it's gonna be expensive to maintain, and it's gonna have some specialized training. What I'm saying is, if you say, well, think outside the box, it is a specialized unit, it draws in cost sharing, because we do have somebody that sits here, it's not a volunteer, she, he, whatever, but they can get it moving for the volunteers in Derby, and so, when they get the call, they can move it 10 miles either way, they don't have to wait for the post road. In other words, all the towns get together and say, I wanna share a $5 million piece of equipment, because it's $2 to buy it, or $2.5 to buy it, but then you need the crew that can really, I see how many guys are going up, that's a real big volunteer force, so I'm just spitballing is,
What are you envisioning, like one central place where it's stored and
well,
there's an
what's the
employee-
radius around us? If
And
we're
then-
the one that, it's kind of like having a dispatcher that covers a region, right?
Right,
I'm
but
just
what are you saying, like employing people 24 hours a day to be with that piece of equipment?
divided by 6 is part-time, right? In other words, divided by 6 towns.
But to get to
But
the
we-
fire with all those towns.
And where are you
that's
gonna
an
store it?
Where
important-
are you gonna store it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you store it
Yeah.
here, and you have a radius of 15 miles.
So you offer
and you
it
have
to
and you have a
other
team and you
towns.
have a team that's funded by the 6 towns that needs an aerial. Bethany doesn't have an aerial. How
So-
do they get an aerial?
But
Yeah,
to
but
get to
it's-
the other end of Bethany, wouldn't that
Right.
be too long a
If
time period?
if it could move when the call came in,
Well, even
and
then,
it's
though,
cross-training.
No,
Bethany-
because people have to drive here.
Right.
But
There's
what are you
5 minutes
saying?
just to
But I
get
think
here.
what
So
Scott
you're missing my
is
point, but that's
saying-
okay.
No, I think what Scott is
Having a
saying is
group
why
here.
wouldn't Woodbridge maybe offer other towns that doesn't have one a step above mutual aid, which is we will employ a team, we will have the truck here.
cost sharing.
We'll have the truck here in Woodbridge, we'll employ a team, and it can go anywhere.
Within the
So
reasonable
I-
radius, within the reasonable radius
Right.
on the
Here's-
dime.
Get
Here's
to
the deal.
Prospect
Here's the
or
deal.
Camden
I'm just
is gonna
spitballing,
be
you know,
like
I-
half an
I-
hour, no?
You know,
So
I could be naive.
Here's the
No, no,
deal,
I-
right? Let's take EMS, how it works. in this
Okay.
town, Right?
Yep.
Same deal, right? So, and it's the exact same situation. So EMS, we pay for a medic, $315,000 a year in this town to keep a medic 24/7, 365. You pay for that, well, I pay for that, we all pay for that, right?
Yeah.
So Bethany doesn't pay for that. But when Bethany needs a medic, they call AMR, says we need a medic. AMR calls Woodbridge, Woodbridge
Sends them.
dispatches our medic to Bethany.
Okay.
So Bethany uses
Has
us
coverage.
as mutual aid, and we always get, and there's been a lot of heat on that because we're paying for the medic's going out of town, so God help us, say something happens to Stephanie, the medic's out of town, now we're waiting for a medic to backfill, or an ambulance to backfill Woodbridge, and how do we know what's gonna happen? So now, the medic's up in Bethany, we have another issue in town, let's say, now we have a contract that shows, I think it's 9 minutes, I think they changed it, it's either 9 or 10 minutes on a priority 1 call, 90% of the time. So now, what we're saying is, well, you just shipped our medic out, so now we're gonna be 14 minutes. Something happens, somebody dies, but we're within the 90%. And Bethany is saying, well, and we said to Bethany, why don't you front the medic, give us money for the medic? And Bethany said, well, we don't wanna pay for the medic. But we're not calling Woodbridge for mutual aid, we're calling AMR for mutual aid. AMR is saying to Woodbridge, we need a medic to go to Bethany, and we could turn around really easily and say, no, we're not gonna go to Bethany for mutual aid, right? Because that's our medic. But then again, if somebody dies at Bethany, you're gonna feel really bad. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place here. So there's no, Bethany is not gonna fund, Bethany doesn't wanna fund the medic to be in town or share the medic service. So here we are again, we're back to square one. So what do? Do you not buy a medic to stay in town, even though if the medic calls today, the medic's not gonna go to Bethany? That's what you run into. So it sounds great, but these other towns aren't gonna sign on for it unless it's in their town. And Bethany doesn't even wanna pay for a medic service, which is, to me, is basic 101, you need one, right? That's where the majority of things are going. And they're saying, well, no, we don't need to pay for one.
But they do pay for the EMR. They pay for EMR on a call basis.
No, they pay for AMR when they need AMR.
Right.
So that brings up a whole nother thing. So AMR leaves here, AMR charges Bethany Fire Department, Town of Bethany, Bethany Fire Department, Town of Bethany pays AMR, Woodbridge gets zero.
Okay, that's a separate meeting and a separate board.
But that's
An emergency,
where,
yeah.
Okay.
that's where
But I just
it
wanna
all
say,
goes.
yeah, I understand that, but I think what Scott's saying is, can we reimagine what something like that might look like?
It's never gonna happen, we wouldn't agree to it.
Why?
If the ladder truck was in Orange, right? And
And it could reach, it could
would
reach
never
the
reach in time.
it could reach the incident because it doesn't have a volunteer fire department, because it has a dedicated staff sitting in the thing with the motor running, right? And it can reach it at the same time. Why wouldn't you do it?
I don't think it would reach it at the same time.
Why wouldn't it?
If you're going to Bethany, you could go all the way up
If
almost to
a
Norfolk.
volunteer's gotta
That would
get
be
there.
a
the
half an
cost
hour.
would be extremely high. You gotta
Yeah,
look,
that's true.
let's take a $2 million truck, right?
Mhm.
What's it gonna do to staff that truck? If you're talking, so
24/7.
you're talking a driver and
24
you're
hours
talking
a
minimum
day,
of 3
yeah.
guys on that truck. So you're
But that's
talking a
also
four-
not,
you're
no one's
talking
working 7 days.
four
a week.
But
guys.
you may be talking a driver with 3
24/7.
volunteers on the other end.
No,
Yeah,
you're
you still have
talking,
to wait for
you're
it.
talking
You
a
still have to wait
specialized
for them
crew.
to get
But
there.
what I'm saying
Right.
is, what I'm saying is, you've got the volunteers, the 3 guys, the drivers on the truck, the 3 guys are in Orange. So the 3 guys are going to the fire from the volunteers, and the driver's taking his
But you're waiting
apparatus.
for
My
the
T-Rex for my tree work guy.
But you're waiting.
Johnny's there waiting for the
Yes,
T-Rex
but
to come
you're
in.
waiting for those 3 volunteers to get on that truck. The truck's not gonna roll with 1 guy on it.
Can't just do it with one guy.
No, but can the truck roll and it's supported, its operation, its specialized trains unit, is sitting in the co-shared town. I'm just trying to spitball in thinking about cost sharing, something that's a little bit outside the box. I understand mutual aid, a provincial rule, and all that kind of stuff doesn't, some town doesn't wanna talk to another town or something like that.
Has nothing to do with
No,
that. It
yeah.
has to do with basically functionality. I mean, we're not gonna, if we're putting money into it, we're gonna want that truck here. And we're gonna want it now.
But if we put a third of the money into it,
Okay, what's it gonna cost to staff a truck? 4 guys, 24/7, 365. It's not 4
Divided-
guys, it's gonna be
but
probably
again, I don't wanna fight the issue because I'm not
16 guys.
knowledgeable. I'm just, I thought maybe thinking about, cost sharing with having that truck, if some other town had one and says, I can have it there, in whatever you need it there, I can have it there for you. Is that powerful? And is that a way to look at, sharing our costs, and we all benefit from whoever shares those costs? That's just the thought.
you're not, you gotta realize, Scott, when you go to a fire, and it depends on where it is in town, let's say we're over on 67, right? Let's say the truck is housed in Orange. by the time we get there and set up, Orange still isn't gonna be there yet, and we're gonna be set up, what are we gonna do? Disassemble the hose and everything, bring the truck in, get the truck set up, and then re-energize everything at that point, cause that's
Yeah, it's
just
like
not how we do it.
mobilizing and then
It's like-
demobilizing
right,
and
then
remobilizing
You're just
in
not
the
gonna
middle
do
of
that.
the fire.
And really, Bethany's the only one around there that doesn't have an aerial. All the
Right.
towns touching Woodbridge have their
Derby, the Valley.
Derby,
all-
Hamden,
New
they all have
Haven
their
will
own.
get theirs out of
Gulf Street's the closest one
Golf,
for us.
Golf, okay. Oh, is that, okay.
And remember, they'll only send the truck if it's available.
If there's something going on in New Haven, you're not.
They won't
Yeah,
send the
there's a lot
truck,
of stuff
or if
going on.
if they got whatever going on, you don't get it.
Yeah.
Just, there's a lot with this, it's not just, hey, we're gonna call for it, we expect it. You may not get it, and then you have to call around and find out who else is available to send one.
Right, what happened the other day at the fire up there? Beacon Falls, I had to go back to Beacon Falls.
So Beacon Falls was at Latacrete, right? They had the aerial set up, we set our aerial up, right? We were parked on the road, Beacon Falls got their aerial set up, they ended up getting a house fire, they had to disassemble the aerial and they had to leave. Luckily, we got up on the roof, realized.
So Bethany
Central
did
wasn't
use,
there.
under mutual aid, they used our aerial on the ladder.
They
fire.
used Beacon Falls' aerial.
Until it
and
had to
Beacon
get called.
Falls had to go. They didn't even call for our aerial. I had somebody else here, so I had them take our aerial up just in case we needed it.
Yeah, and we just provided that under a mutual aid agreement.
They didn't ask for it, they asked for 2 tankers and an engine. We sent them 2
Yeah.
tankers and an engine.
Just spitballing to think outside the box a little bit as to how we've done
Well,
business.
remember,
to
Bethany
get an area.
Bethany
to get
has
us,
2 tankers and Bethany had multiple engines there.
Mhm.
So you're always calling for mutual aid. You're always gonna utilize mutual aid, but mutual aid isn't your first line of defense.
Because you can't rely on it.
You can never rely on mutual aid. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know if, I may ask for
Especially
2
during the
tankers out of
day.
Bethany, Bethany only send me 1.
Yeah,
They may not
especially
have-
during
and,
the day.
under mutual aid, I understand that. I'm thinking a little bit more outside the box when you have,
Okay, so
have a situation.
let's say we have that truck tied up on the post road somewhere doing something else, and we ended up having a fire at the high school or one of the nursing homes or the JCC or whatever, and we need an aerial device, and that aerial device is not available to us.
Well, if the region was big enough, we'd have 2 areas, you know, and
Right,
if the
but
region's not big enough, we'll have 1. You
Well,
know,
we
like,
could have
you define
4
the circle, right? You
aerials.
define the circle as to what's your best circle to have it covered.
Right.
Because if we have 2 fires going on at the same time, we're out of luck.
You, remember, it may not be a fire, it might be a rescue,
Yeah,
it might
yeah,
be,
right.
hey, there might be an RTU that is malfunctioning, creating smoke throughout the building, we gotta get up there and check the RTU. You utilizing the ladder at one site and we have a fire at another site,
Somebody
what's
fell
more
off
important?
West Rock.
Yeah, I
The
mean, I
fire,
think
the
the tension
RTU,
is
what's
that
the thing, it's
if-
gonna be
If
really
you just
tough to-
present it to the general public, they're like, oh, we're willing to compromise, we can share. But in
You
that
have to know
moment,
that.
what the fire department knows is that they have to be 100% prepared and perfect every time.
Right.
And
It's not like we can come back tomorrow. So
Yeah.
like your tree guy, right? If your tree guy, it's raining today this morning, right? Oh, I'm not gonna drive on because I'm gonna wreck your lawn. If your house is on fire, if it's raining out, snowing out, or icing out, it really doesn't make a difference. We still have to go. And we have to get the job done.
right, so it's
So we have a job that you have to succeed 100% of the time. That's what it comes down to.
yeah, so it's really asking people, if it's your house and Orange is on another call, you're gonna be fine with that, right? Because we're cost sharing. They're gonna say, no, we're not fine
But
with
the
that.
alternative is if we don't get our finance committee.
Right.
And we don't get our town to approve one, we have no aerial.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's the alternative.
Well, we have a really
When you're
old
talking
one.
about
We have a
That is
really
an-
old one.
That is an alternative.
But what I'm saying is if we don't get this aerial,
Yeah.
right?
But that-
Then we don't have any, so when they do call for that fire, there is no aerial.
Right.
Okay, that's the alternative.
Yeah.
Right, if we don't get one.
Right.
And so that's
So
the
a
issue.
third of an
To the
aerial
people
is
that
better
say,
than no
that say
aerial.
we can't afford an aerial, is it, well, is it? Depending upon
Is
the
it?
region, right? Is it?
It depends. Yeah, no, I think those are very good questions
Yep.
that you're asking, and, you know, I think, you know, I mean, from my perspective, the position is, there's a reason why every other town around us, besides Bethany, has one. And we should really consider that. On the other hand, if the option is none, then we should consider other alternatives and think outside the
Another
box.
spitball on cost sharing. We have a regional school in town. Does this provide any sort of argument that it provides not only fire suppression for a regional school. Bethany doesn't have an aerial, and Orange is too far. You've convinced me. Okay, so you can't use Orange's aerial because it's too far away.
And there's only one.
So is that the kind of thing that in a regional school district it should be looked at as a cost sharing, that we have a fire district here, and that should be a fire district?
You're not gonna, if you play it that way, they're gonna say, well then, that ladder should be strictly for the school, not for other buildings in town. That's how I would look at it, if I lived in another town.
Paid
So
taxes, yeah.
if that aerial went to another, if we went to, let's say it went to the GCC for the fire we had, right? That aerial left and there's an issue at Amity High School, that aerial better be going to the high school, or that aerial better be at the high school, not at the GCC, because I really don't care if the GCC is burning or not, right?
But if
You're
you
in a
have to get
catch,
them
so
to agree
what
to
you have to
something
realize
like
is,
that.
you have to realize there's a lot of decisions that are made really quick, and you need to get an aerial to these locations when you need them. The JCC is one of them. We needed an aerial, we called Orange, I think it took over 20 minutes to get Orange's aerial there.
But likewise, if we have a
they
situation
got
at the
it.
high school and we have a situation at the JCC, we're only gonna be able to cover one, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's in a fire district or not, we're only gonna cover one because we have one aerial. So I'm not quite seeing that argument, but in other words,
You're gonna
you're saying
call for,
JCC
you're
and high
gonna
school.
call for mutual aid. So, just because, when we're out at a fire, we call for mutual aid to cover the town. Mutual aid may take 20 minutes to get here to cover the town, but we call, when we're all out and we emptied our department here because we're at a fire, somebody else, whether it be Orange, whether it be Bethany, Prospect, Seymour, they're back here covering, so if another call comes in, they're responding from here to go to that call. So that may be an engine, that may be an aerial, that may be tankers, that might be a couple different things depending on what we have and what's going on. So we can't say one call is gonna be there and we're not gonna be covered at all anymore, because we're really not. We really are. Depends on what we call for, and depends on what comes here. Mutual aid, we usually have a little discrepancy, so if an engine gets here from, say, Seymour, and a tanker, I'll get notified on the radio that we have an engine and a tanker from Seymour here. Bethany may say, oh, we have a tanker at Woodbridge's firehouse, so we know now we have 2 tankers and an engine. What else do we need to backfill while we're down here, and how long are we gonna be here for? Before we could free up an aerial, before we could free up another tanker, send one of them home. We may need another engine, or we may need a rescue. You don't know until you're in that situation, then you gotta figure out what you need to backfill here. But you are always backfilled, it's just a matter of time. But your first line of defense is different from backfilling. That's why if something happens at your house, you're gonna want everything right there, right then and there. If I tell you the aerial's not available, or it's coming from Orange, well, how long is it gonna take? I don't know, however long it takes from Orange to get to here. And just because we have lights and sirens, doesn't mean we're going as fast as a car can drive. It's a truck. They're governed out, and there's only so fast you're gonna go to go, say, from the post road to
They have to get
across
from
town.
their house to the post road.
Well,
to the
he's
fire
saying
truck,
have a
too.
paid,
That's another.
have a paid unit.
Even if you have a paid unit, it's gonna be several $100,000 per year. Over the course of 10 years, you're talking $2 million. So even if you're saving, it's 2 million times, every 10 years, you're thinking, let's say $2 million, right? So that's 2 million for the truck, 2 million for every 10 years, over a 30-year period. That's $8 million.
But are we
You're
gonna have to be
dividing by
certified
3.
on this truck though? I mean,
You're certified, we're certified in every truck.
But I'm saying isn't an aerial required, does an aerial require any specialized?
Got from the
training?
factory
Comes from the
Yeah,
factory,
so
So,
factory
but
training.
no additional special training for an aerial and how to operate.
So the factory trains us, so even with this new truck that's coming, factory comes down and they do in-house training with us on the pump and everything else. Pumping is just as important as an aerial, believe it or not, because now we're putting people inside the fire, and we better know how to pump the truck so we don't burn anybody inside, because if we don't know how to pump the truck, then we got a bigger problem. In aerial, what's the worst that's gonna happen? We can't get it off, we can't get it up and get it over.
Last spitballing thing,
Yeah.
think about, if you haven't gotten an aerial for how many years it's been, 15, 20? No, you said you went
No,
to
what
ask
year
them-
did you buy it?
What
We
year
just
did you
bought
go
this
to?
in
Yeah.
2018.
But what year,
2018, yeah.
They had the
What-
50-foot.
but when did you ask for one and then they shot it down?
16.
16, so.
But then the
8 years
association
ago.
bought it anyway.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, in addition to cost sharing, is it a community asset that allows us to grow the grand list? We're talking about the existing grand list, right? We're talking about these big McMansions, 45,000 square foot homes that are valuable and stuff. Is this also a way, because it can reach 7 stories, right? A 100-footer can get up to 7 stories if you design the 7-story building correctly, right, for fire
You gotta
prevention.
remember, you got a collapse risk of 1.5 times.
Understood, but also if you can get closer because you designed the building in such a way that you're not, pulling up and they got all these trees, you can't get close to the building.
It's not
You
even
gotta be
that.
1.5.
It's 1.5
Yeah.
times the height of the building. So if you're looking at 7-story building.
I'm looking 60, 70, yeah.
Okay.
So I
you got
think
100.
I think that would
So
go to the
70 feet.
ISO ratings, like,
Right.
you know,
Over
what are-
100 feet, you're over 100 feet, you have to be back.
I think 100,
So
at least
100
my
foot
research said
ladder
100
won't
can do
reach-
6 stories, right,
won't
if you
reach
can get
that.
close. I don't,
Anyway, I think what you're saying is, can we attract business by saying that we have 100
Is
foot
it a
aerial?
community asset that
Right.
allows us, because there's always the use of, well, we can't grow our grand list because we don't have the equipment to support the growing of our grand list. So saying, well, now we do have an aerial and we can grow our grand list.
I
In
don't
other
think that's ever been an issue though, has it?
Sure, because you'll see
I never heard
folks will
that.
say that we can't go above 35 feet because we don't have, we can't, we gotta get an aerial, we gotta get up top.
Well, there's a law.
That's
in
a
the
zoning-
books.
that's a
There's
zoning
I understand-
law
I
in the
understand,
I
but-
thought they were
books
gonna
that
do
you
that.
can't
That's
go higher.
35 and 40 feet.
But the
Yeah.
ability to have the infrastructure, the community assets that allow us to grow our grand
Well, I
list
don't
to
think
say.
the town wants us to go higher than that though, do they?
Well, that's,
You know, there's a
no,
whole-
So
I mean, I-
years
that's a
ago,
whole
years
nother-
ago,
that's a whole
years ago,
nother
they were looking to
ballgame.
fill up Bradley Road before this project went in, and they were looking to do a Woodbridge development.
Yeah.
And it failed because the setback was 20 feet instead of 25 feet,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. But at the time, for them to do that, they were gonna have these things that would release on the roof, like for if there was a fire, these things would pop and basically ventilate. But at the time, the developer was gonna kick in, I think it was in the area of about $500,000 for a ladder truck to be able to build this thing because he really wanted to do, and then it ended up dying. I think it planted in zoning because of the setback issue.
But I think of the buildings that are on Litchfield Turnpike, where that near, it's kind of, it's not rented out as much, but it's got to be 4 or 5. It's got a pretty good size elevator in it, right? And it's about 4 or 5 stories on Litchfield Turnpike, that office building, right? With all the parking.
3 stories.
Is it
No, I
3?
think it's 3 is the
Three.
tops, yeah.
3
Oh,
stories.
yeah, on the
You can't go
left-hand
higher
side.
than
the
that.
brick one.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
that was
What I'm
the
saying
old
is, I mean, whether you're, what I'm saying is those kinds of assets, attracting that, having this community asset allows us to service that building very nicely, right? That's perfectly what you're talking about, we need this aerial for.
We
If
do.
we wanted another building like that, in other words, if we didn't have an aerial, it would make it higher to suppress a fire in this. All I'm saying is, it does allow you to grow the grand list area, it suppresses at the bowling alley, at the indoor soccer, it suppresses at these office buildings down in the other area, so.
no, I like the idea. I like the idea of what you're saying, that we are anticipating development in the very near future because we're not accepting anything less, right, as a town.
I'm just saying, this
And-
is also a community asset
Right.
that allows us to do, it doesn't hold us back.
Right.
It allows us to have the buildings that we have. In other words, it doesn't say, well, gosh, we couldn't service those, we can't get up on
Right,
those.
so you're
and we
basically
can't-
saying, get the ladder truck, and that's one less impediment to development, which I like that argument for the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen.
To grow the grand list.
And
It's a
right.
way of growing the grand list, whether
Right.
it's,
And I think
because
we
we need to
should-
grow our grand list, and if we don't have community assets to grow the grand list, it's gonna be harder to grow it. There's
And-
gonna be pushback.
Yes, I think we should advance that, I agree. All right, does anyone else have any other questions about the presentation? Okay,
All right, so we'll work on the presentation with some new slides, and we'll go from there.
okay. All right, next item on the agenda is current financial statements.
Okay, so, financial statement, building is gonna be one that we're over again. We had to pump out our oil water separator in the back. We got the bill on that. It's just about $4,000. We checked, Public Works had roughly the same cost to pump out their oil water separator, and then they have another big one, which costs them $19,000. They do that once a year. So the cost, we used to be able to pump the oil water separator in the Only tank out for about $1,700 a couple years ago, and now it's just about $4,000. So reason why budgets are going up, this is exactly why, and it's out of our control. Building, there's a couple other things. We have, we still have the issue we're dealing with in the bay. We got the heat fixed in the floor, but we have our makeup air unit that's having a little bit of an issue. So we're looking to correct that right now, and some other odds and ends around the building. So I expect that line to go over. I talked to Tony about it, so I'm gonna be drafting a memo, basically asking for more money to be put in that account from contingency. And everything else right now is okay. Repair maintenance machine, we're doing okay. We're trying to keep that number down this year as much as we can. We don't have to take the tires off, but let's knock on wood that that will get us through the rest of the year. We don't have to ask for money on that line. Next year, I anticipate us going over that because we do have to pull the tires off and do the brake inspections on the trucks. So usually when that happens, we end up with a heavy year. And that's it for operating.
All right, anybody have any questions? I just want to touch on professional development.
Which one?
Professional development, the 30,000. Oh,
So-
no, the one before that, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, what is that? The 3,000 and we're over 3720.
We're over $720 on that. That is a couple things, and one of that, what comes out of that also is our weather DTN system that we have in the other room. We've had, that line consistently goes over by that amount of money every year, and
We
we
put it
fund
in the budget and they write it down or something, or what?
Usually, yep. There's another issue that's gonna go, we're gonna look for contingency, just so we're aware of the switches in the firehouse, the IT switches.
What item is that in?
That is going to be out of, I have to go through it to tell you what line item it is. But the IT switches are older. We have 3 of them that are 7 years old, and we have, I think it's 2 or 3 switches that are the life of the building, and they have failed. And when they fail, we lose the phone system, we lose internet, we lose everything in the building. We have to unplug them, reset them, and they come back up, but it's only a matter of time before they don't come back up. So we need to get those replaced, so we're currently getting a price right now. So I'm anticipating that number to be probably around $10,000.
And you're not sure which line item that goes in?
I have to go through it.
Okay.
It's gonna come out of,
Computer or technical, maybe?
no, it won't be technical, it might be computer, or it's gonna come out of, data processing.
Okay.
But I will work with Tony on that, but that's just to give you an idea of where we are.
Okay. All right, anyone have questions on the operating budget year to date? Okay, chief's report.
Okay, so, we've got a couple trucks that are gonna go out for service, next month, maybe March, which is right around the corner. Hopefully we'll get a good, it's just going out for lube oil and filters. routine maintenance, so hopefully we have no major issues. They come back and we're good. Engine 9 got shipped out of Minnesota on Friday. It arrived in Massachusetts this morning at 9:30, and the committee is going up on Thursday to Massachusetts to go over the truck for the final inspection and figure out some mounting of equipment, and they're gonna be doing a PDI on the truck. And once that is complete, probably a few weeks, the truck will come down here, we'll finish mounting the equipment and get it into service. So, good news, but just to put it in perspective, we ordered engine 9 December of 2021, and we're taking delivery in March of 2024. If we were to order the aerial today, we won't see that aerial for 3 years, and the payment wouldn't be made until probably 4 years, because we usually pay in the rears. So on this current truck, engine 9, we bought it in 2021. We're taking delivery in March of 24. We probably won't have to make our first payment until March of 25.
Is there such thing as a buyer consultant or something that helps you, you know, buy a fire truck? Is there something that, whether it can be on price or on speed of delivery or on, in other words, you know, a consultant that
What
comes in and
happened
says,
was,
I can get
ever
this.
since COVID, the long lead time on fire apparatus is huge, and it's not just fire apparatus, it's engines, it's transmissions, it's pumps, we have, even on the new truck, we have what's called, it's a ventilation system that keeps the equipment in the compartments dry. If it gets wet, it dries out so it doesn't get moldy and the hose doesn't get moldy, or the equipment doesn't, and that has been on back order for 1.5 years. So even when we get the truck, we're still missing that component. We're missing ladders. If we were to order a ladder today, we won't see a ladder for a minimum 12 months. And that's a ground ladder, it's a regular ladder that you think you can go to Home Depot and buy. Our ladders, right now, they're 12 months out, just to buy a ladder. So, there's something else that we just got word, gauges. The gauges on the truck that tell you the pressure. We have 2 different color gauges, one failed, they're gonna replace them both, but it's not that they can't replace them, they're on a temporary back hold because there's an issue with gauges. And so they're not producing them and they're not sending them out, and it's not like I can go and buy a different gauge to stick in the truck, everybody's in the same boat. So,
Okay, so there's basically no way.
There's
there's
no
no
consultants.
way to
Yeah, there's no way
expedite
to-
this. Price-wise, we use something called HGAC, which is the Houston Galveston contract. It's already been negotiated, the prices have been negotiated for every single item, so you are getting the best price, so it's basically going through a state contract.
Okay, anything else on the chief's report?
The shed, or the garage in the back, we're gonna move forward. Hopefully, we're gonna commence digging and get the foundation in starting sometime next week, and start moving forward again on that. The project's gonna go back out the bid for the actual building itself, but the foundation, hopefully we'll start getting that in the ground next week.
Okay, anyone have questions on that? Okay, Assistant Chief Bakowitz is not with us tonight, so we are skipping that. Are we skipping that?
We can talk about it if you want, I have his report.
Okay, everybody had the report in the packet, so does anyone have questions about that?
One thing just to point out, we had one structure fire, there was a pot on the stove, it was left on the stove. They caught the back wall on fire, caught some of the cabinets on fire, the hood on fire, and there was some damage done to the house. It was actually pretty extensive in the kitchen area, so that was something big. And the other big thing was we had a high angle rescue up on West Rock last month, where we had 3 climbers. We're climbing up West Rock. One guy didn't make it up as far, he was able to come back down. We were able to get him down. The second climber, we were able to get down. Third climber made it up quite a ways, and New Haven had to come and rappel down to him and bring him up that way. So with Hamden and us, we did 3 rescues on West Rock a month ago.
Anyone have questions? All right, fire marshal's report, Joe?
38 inspections last month.
First of all, we're glad to have you back with us.
Well, thanks, it's good to be back. COVID stinks. It does. And I've been working last couple of weeks on a fire that we had a couple of years ago that went to trial last week. I testified this morning,
Oh,
so
wow.
got that over with.
How did that go?
I did all right.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at any jail time.
Do you want to just give us a tiny bit of background about that?
Okay, October of 21. October 2nd, apparently the car was stolen, used in a shooting in Bridgeport, someone died. And they drove it here Sunday afternoon on Hollow Oak Road and set it on fire. So that's how I got involved, because they burned it in Woodbridge. So I got to see the video of the shooting. See it when I was in the prosecutor's. Would you like to see the video? Sure, why not?
They had the video.
They have them on like a storefront, like a
Storefront
camera we have
camera.
out here.
Everything is filmed.
Picked everything right up.
Like,
Wow.
You could see the faces.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
It makes the case easier.
yeah, that end of it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. I asked them, can you call me and let me know what the outcome is? Because you don't know what the jury's gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So, they're hoping to wrap it up this week.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Thanks for the letter.
Yeah. Your background check, you cleared.
Thank God. I'd have nowhere to go if I wasn't here.
I don't think that's true.
Okay, do you have your report you want to share with us, or?
I gave it to you, 38 inspections.
Okay, oh, okay, all right, sorry. I got me all caught up with murder trial, I don't know. Okay, the next, anyone have questions? All right, the next item on the agenda is correspondence, and we have some. Tina, do you want to share that with us?
We do have correspondence. Actually, Joe would remember this. It was an email from a resident, Rick Allen. It was, Dear Chief Roland Marshall Capucci, my husband and I would like to thank and commend the members of your fire department for responding to our emergency call for a chimney fire on January 18th at 20 Acorn Hill. Remember that one, Joe?
Yeah.
We're fortunate they were able to contain the fire, minimizing any structural damage to our home. The firemen were concerned, supportive, informative, professional, and reassuring when we were stressed and frightened. They created as little disturbance as residue as possible in combating the fire and gave us advice on working with our insurance company. So they took a bunch of pictures. I think I sent this all to you so you
Yes.
can see. We certainly hope we don't need to use your services again, but it's reassuring to know that you were there if we need to. Thank you for what you do for our community. So Pat and Rick Allen, 28 Corn Hill.
And then she brought us cookies.
And she brought us
Aw.
cookies. She brought cookies like 3 times.
Yeah.
Very
She
nice.
made 'em.
We like that from residents. But she was very sweet. She came by and she was very nice.
They good?
Well, thank
They
you.
were
They're excellent cookies.
Excellent cookies.
Really good cookies.
Did you share them?
I shared them with everybody.
All right,
Sure,
thank
something
you very
like
much
that.
for that. Okay, next item on the agenda is to approve the January 3rd meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments or changes? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 3rd regular meeting?
Regular meeting because it was
Yep.
to do the budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Motion.
All right, a second?
I'll second.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for March 18th. Everybody okay with that date for now? Okay. And that's all we have, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.